My father looked at the empty chair across from him, then at the leather folder resting beside his plate, and said, "Diana, please, we are drowning." For a second, every person at that table stopped breathing. There were 15 relatives around me. There were empty wine bottles in a silver bucket, lobster shells on white china, and a bill large enough to change the temperature in the room. My mother had told me it would be dinner for 4. Instead, I had walked into a private dining room full of people who had not spoken to me in 3 years. They had invited me back into the family for one reason. They thought I would pay for it. What none of them knew was that I had already paid for my own drink, already separated myself from their table, and already told the restaurant manager exactly who had booked the party. The check was not in front of me. It was in front of my father. And when his first card failed, then his second, then the last card in his wallet, the story my family had built about me finally fell apart in public. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was realizing that my father was right about one thing. They were drowning. They had simply decided that I was supposed to drown with them. My name is Diana Mayfield. I am 32 years old and I work in restaurant operations for a small group with 4 locations outside Knoxville. I do not own the restaurants, I do not come from money, I do not wear designer clothes or drive a new car or spend weekends ordering expensive wine. I started in restaurants when I was 17, bussing tables after school at a steakhouse near the highway. I learned how to carry stacks of hot plates without burning my wrist. I learned how to smile at people who snap their fingers. I learned that a server can tell which table will complain before the menus are even open. By 19, I was hosting. By 21, I was serving. By 24, I was managing a dining room. By 30, I was overseeing staffing, vendors, maintenance, food costs, schedules, inventory, guest complaints, and the quiet emergencies that make a restaurant feel less like a business and more like a living animal. If a freezer breaks on a Friday afternoon, I know what it will cost before the repair company calls back. If a vendor invoice is padded, I can find it. If a guest tells me nothing is wrong while staring at a plate they have not touched, I know something is wrong. I am good at noticing what people do not say. That is why I should have known better when my mother contacted me after 3 years of silence. It was a Tuesday morning. I was at my desk reviewing an olive oil contract and trying to decide whether a supplier had made an honest mistake or hoped I would not notice the change in freight charges. My phone lit up beside my keyboard. At first, I thought it was a work message. Then I saw the name of the group chat, Family. There was a red heart beside the word. My mother had chosen that little heart years ago, back when the chat was mostly Thanksgiving recipes, birthday reminders, blurry photos of my sister Brooke's dog, and my Aunt Linda complaining about the weather. I had not seen that heart in 3 years. The notification said I had been added to the group. I stared at it for so long that my coffee went cold. The chat was empty except for one new message from my mother. Either the old history had been cleared, or there had been another family chat the entire time, one where everyone could talk about me without having to see my name. Her message was careful. Your father and I had been talking. We know there has been too much distance. We would like to take you to dinner and try to start over. A second message appeared less than a minute later. Just the 4 of us, Mom, Dad, Brooke, and you. The Belvedere, Thursday evening. Then came the final line. Family should take care of family, sweetheart. It is time we remembered that. I read it twice. My mother had not said she was sorry. She had not said they were wrong. She had not said they missed me. She had said it was time to start over, as if 3 years of silence had happened by itself, as if no one had made a choice, as if nobody had decided that I was only welcome when I was useful. Family should take care of family. In my childhood home, that sentence had always meant one thing. Diana pays. When I was 19 and working double shifts, my mother used it when the power bill came due. When I was 23, she used it when my father needed help repairing his truck. When Brooke's first apartment fell through, she used it while I transferred money for the deposit. The phrase never meant that my family would care for me. It meant they had found another reason I should care for them. I should have ignored the message, I should have deleted it, blocked the number, and gone back to the olive oil contract. Instead, I typed, I will be there. Then I put my phone face down and tried to work while my hands shook under the desk. 3 years earlier, my sister had wanted to open a café. Brooke was 26. She had recently spent a weekend in Charleston, where she had eaten at a small coffee shop with exposed brick, hanging plants, and handwritten menus. When she came home, she announced that she had found her calling. She wanted a cafe of her own. Not eventually, not after experience, not after saving money. Right then. My parents treated the idea as if Brooke had received a message from the universe. My father said she had always been creative. My mother said she had a natural gift with people. Brooke said she could already picture the sign above the door. The bank was willing to consider a loan, but he wanted a co-signer. My parents wanted that co-signer to be me. They asked on a Sunday afternoon. I remember sitting at my kitchen table while rain tapped against the windows. My mother was on speakerphone. My father was close enough to her that I could hear his breathing before he spoke. Brooke needs this chance, Mom said. I am happy to look at the plan, I told her. The silence that followed was immediate. What plan? Brooke asked. I asked about projected sales, rent, labor costs, insurance, equipment leases, food costs, permits, supplier contracts, and how much money she had saved for the months before the business became profitable. Brooke did not have answers. She had paint colors, she had menu ideas. She had a name for the cafe and a photograph of a wall she wanted to copy. My mother's voice went cold. She is your sister. You do not need a spreadsheet to love your sister. I do love her, I said. That is why I cannot put my name on $75,000 of debt without a real plan. My father took the phone. You have good credit, he said. You have a stable job. You have always had more sense than the rest of us. This is exactly why family helps family. I told him I would not sign. He did not yell. That would have been easier. He went quiet for a moment and then he said, If you will not help this family, you are not part of it. The next morning, I was removed from the group chat. No one called, no one texted, no one asked if I was all right. No one asked if I had changed my mind. They simply disappeared. For 3 years, I was the daughter who chose money over her sister. The truth was harder to admit. I missed them. I did not miss the demands, the guilt, or the way every family gathering ended with someone quietly asking whether I could cover something. But I missed my mother's cornbread. I missed my father falling asleep in front of football games. I missed Brooke before every conversation with her turned into a request. Most of all, I missed the version of my family I had kept alive in my head. Therapy helped me understand that grief is not always about losing good people. Sometimes it is about losing the hope that they will become who you needed them to be. My therapist, Dr. Kwan, once said, You learn to purchase peace. The problem is that peace bought with your fear is never peace. It is rent. I wrote that sentence down. For years, I had been the family fixer. My first real paycheck went toward groceries, a tax refund paid for my mother's dental work. When my father's truck needed a transmission, I covered it and told him the repair shop had made an insurance mistake because I knew he would not accept money from his daughter if it was called a gift. When Brooke got married, I paid for the photographer, the florist, and part of the reception. My mother gave a toast about raising 2 independent daughters. I stood there smiling while the catering invoice sat in my email. I had taught them what I would tolerate. That was not an excuse for them. It was simply the truth I had to face before I could change anything. The day after my mother's invitation, I told 2 people at work. Jess, our purchasing coordinator, was eating soup across from me in the break room when I mentioned dinner. She put down her spoon and said, That sounds like an ambush. I know, I said. You have not spoken to them in 3 years, and now they want to take you to an expensive restaurant to heal? It is supposed to be just the 4 of us. Jess looked at me for a long moment. Take your own car, she said. Do not let anybody order for you. And if something feels wrong, leave. Marco, one of our sous chefs, heard part of the conversation while getting coffee. He did not ask for details. He just said, Do not go. I laughed, but neither of them did. I went anyway. Not because I trusted my parents. I did not. I went because I needed to know whether there was anything left to save. I needed to sit across from them and see if they had changed. And if they had not changed, I needed to stop imagining that a different conversation would someday fix everything. On Thursday, I wrote 1 sentence on a yellow sticky note and pressed it to my steering wheel. 1 dinner, then home. I wore black slacks, a gray blouse, flat shoes, and the small silver watch I had bought when I became regional operations director. I drove a 9-year-old Honda. I had no jewelry beyond the watch, no expensive bag, no visible sign that I had money to spare. Not that I had much to spare. People heard that I ran operations and imagined a glamorous life. The truth was that I owned a paid-off two-bedroom condo, contributed to retirement, packed lunches for work, and drank sparkling water when I went out because it made me feel like I had chosen something for myself. The Belvedere was 40 minutes from my home. I drove in silence. Halfway there, I almost turned around. My hands tightened on the wheel. My stomach felt the way it did before a holiday rush, when the kitchen is already behind, the reservations are fully booked, and every server in the building is trying not to panic. But I kept going. The Belvedere sat at the end of a small row of expensive shops, the kind of place with manicured shrubs in the parking lot and dark glass doors that made you feel underdressed before you even walked inside. My father's truck was there. My mother's sedan was there. Then I saw my Aunt Linda's Buick, my Uncle Greg's SUV, Brooke's hatchback still carrying the faded bumper sticker from the café that had closed. I recognized several more cars. Two belonged to people I did not recognize at all. I counted 9 vehicles. My mother had said 4 people. I sat in my car with the engine off and looked at the sticky note. One dinner, then home. The intelligent thing would have been to leave. I knew that. Every instinct I had was telling me to reverse out of the parking space, drive home, heat leftover soup, and let the entire evening become one more unanswered message. But I was tired of running from rooms before I had even entered them. So I straightened my blouse, picked up my purse, and walked inside. The hostess checked her screen when I said my name. "Mayfield party?" she asked. I nodded. "Your group is in the private dining room." She reached for one menu. 1. Not 4. As we walked toward the back, I could hear laughter before I could see anyone. My Aunt Linda had a laugh that traveled through walls. I had not heard it in years, but I recognized it immediately. The hostess stopped outside the room and lowered her voice. "Mr. Mayfield is the host for the party," she said. He signed the large group agreement. "If you need anything, the floor manager is David." That was all she said. She did not tell me about cards or money or private details. She simply made clear what mattered. My father had booked the dinner. My father was the host. I held that fact quietly as she opened the door. There were 15 people around a long table set for 16. Every face turned toward me. My mother stood first with her arms open. "Diana," she said, as if no time had passed at all. "Look at you." A few people clapped. My Uncle Greg whistled. Aunt Linda pressed a napkin to the corner of one eye. Brooke lifted her wine glass and smiled without warmth. The table was covered in food. There were seafood platters on crushed ice, baskets of warm bread, small plates of wagyu sliders, cheese boards, salads, and bottles of red wine in silver coolers. The room smelled like butter, rosemary, grilled meat, and money being spent carelessly. At the far end of the table, directly across from my father, one chair waited. My place. My mother hugged me before I could decide whether I wanted her to. She smelled like the perfume she had worn when I was a child. For one weak second, I almost hugged her back the way I used to. Then she said, "We thought it would be nice to have everyone together, just like old times." "I thought it was just the 4 of us," I said. She waved a hand. "Linda heard we were seeing you. Then Greg did. Then the cousins. You know how family is." Yes, I thought. I knew exactly how family was. I sat in the empty chair because 15 people were watching and because I wanted to see how far they intended to take this. My father sat at the head of the table. He looked older than I remembered. His hair had gone thinner around the temples. There were deep lines beside his mouth, but he was dressed well, in a navy jacket and a white shirt, and he carried himself with the same certainty he always had. Beside him sat Brooke. Her glass was half full. Her phone rested next to her plate. She barely looked up when I sat down. Aunt Linda leaned toward me. "Running all those restaurants must be exciting," she said. "Must be nice to do so well." "It keeps me busy," I said. My water arrived. I asked for sparkling. I did not order food. My father raised one hand and a young server came over. His name tag said Nathan. Another seafood platter, Dad said. 2 more wagyu plates and another bottle of the Saint Emilion. Nathan wrote it down. "Certainly, sir." Dad did not look at the menu. He did not ask anyone what they wanted. He ordered in the voice of a man who expected the room to admire his generosity. Then he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Put it with the party." Nathan nodded and left. Something inside me went still. My father had spent my childhood arguing over the price of windshield wipers. He once drove across town to return a shirt because the cashier had not honored a sale sign. He did not casually order expensive wine for a table full of relatives. This was not celebration, it was performance. And performances need an audience. The first hour moved slowly. People asked questions that sounded polite but had sharp edges underneath them. And Linda wondered if I ever felt lonely in my condo. Cousin Tyler said it must be nice to have a career that let me travel for work. My mother mentioned that I had always been responsible. Brooke said nothing, but every time someone praised me, she took another drink. Then Megan, the cousin who had sent me a birthday message during the second year of silence, asked what I did exactly. I answered simply, I oversee operations for 4 restaurants. Staffing, maintenance, vendors, compliance, budgets, most of the things that go wrong before guests ever see them. Megan looked impressed. That is a lot, she said. It is, I said. My father's expression shifted for half a second. It was not pride, it was calculation. At that table, I could almost hear the same thought moving from person to person. She can afford this. My mother touched my hand. Family should take care of family, she said softly. I looked down at her fingers over mine. Her nails were neatly painted. The ring she wore was the same one she had worn when I was young. For a moment, I remembered her hands kneading dough on the kitchen counter, flour on her wrists, music playing from a little radio by the window. Then I remembered the phrase, family should take care of family. I removed my hand gently. Yes, I said, they should. Nathan passed behind me a few minutes later. He refilled my water before I asked. He looked young, maybe 19 or 20, with the careful speed of someone still learning how to carry too much without showing strain. I recognized him immediately. Restaurant people recognize one another, even when they have never met. He was handling a large table. The family had been drinking. Aunt Linda had asked for more butter twice. Uncle Greg had sent back a side dish because it was not hot enough, even though it had come out steaming. Brooke had dropped her napkin and expected Nathan to pick it up. When he set down my glass, I said, You are doing a good job. He blinked. Then he smiled, just slightly. Thank you, he said. It was such a small thing, but I saw his shoulders ease before he moved away. Around 40 minutes into dinner, I excused myself and went to the restroom. I did not go looking for evidence. I did not plan a confrontation. I went because I needed 2 minutes alone, 2 minutes without the wine, the pressure, the careful little remarks about how well I was doing while everyone else was struggling. The restroom was quiet and too polished, all stone counters and soft lighting. I ran cold water over my hands and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked calm. I did not feel calm. When I returned to the hallway, I heard voices near the service door beside the private room. My mother's voice came first. She will do it, she said. My father answered, lower and rougher. She had better. I stopped before they could see me. Then Brooke laughed. She never says no when people are watching. That is the whole point of inviting everyone. I did not move. Mom said, do not push her too quickly. Let your father handle it after dessert. There was a pause. Then my father said something I could not hear clearly. His voice dropped too low, but I heard my mother answer. The band called again. We cannot keep pretending until summer. My stomach went cold. Brooke said, Diana has enough. She can get you through spring. We just need her to stop acting like she's better than us. I stepped backward before they opened the door. I did not confront them in the hallway. I did not cry. I did not rush out through the parking lot. I stood very still and let the truth settle into place. They had not asked me to dinner. They had gathered an audience because they believed the audience would make me obedient. They had ordered food before I arrived because they believed a bill already on the table would become my responsibility. And somewhere beneath the manipulation, something else was true. They were in trouble. I was not surprised that my father's business was struggling. I had noticed the old truck, I had noticed my mother's worn handbag, I had noticed how my father ordered too confidently and laughed too loudly. I had noticed my mother watching him whenever he reached for his wallet. But I had not known how bad it was. For one moment, standing alone in that hallway, I felt the old pull. Go back, fix it, pay, make the tension disappear, let everyone breathe. Then I heard Dr. Kwan's voice in my memory. Compassion does not require surrender. I walked toward the service station instead of returning to the table. David, the floor manager, was reviewing a ticket beside a row of clean glassware. He wore a black shirt, black tie, and the composed expression of someone who had handled weddings, anniversaries, breakups, arguments, allergies, spilled wine, missing reservations, and every other problem that can happen around food. Nathan stood beside him, folding napkins. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you David?" "Yes," he said. "How can I help?" I lowered my voice. "I am not the host of the Mayfield party, and I will not be covering the party check." Mr. Mayfield booked the room and signed the agreement. "Please keep the full dinner check under his reservation." David did not react dramatically. He looked toward the private room, then back at me. "Understood," he said. "I would also like my sparkling water on a separate check, please." "Of course." I took a breath. "And I want to leave something for Nathan." Nathan looked up. I opened my purse and took out an envelope I had meant to deposit at the bank after work. Inside was cash I had set aside for a weekend expense. I counted out enough to make the gesture matter. "Thank you for taking care of me tonight," I told him. His eyes widened. "You do not have to do that," he said. "I know," I said. "That is why it is a tip." David printed my small check. I paid it immediately. Sparkling water, one line on a receipt, paid in full. Then I returned to the table. The room looked exactly the same, but I did not. The food was still there. The wine was still flowing. My family was still talking over one another. Brooke was arguing with Tyler about a reality show. Aunt Linda was complaining about a neighbor's fence. My mother smiled when I sat down, studying my face as if she expected to see surrender. I picked up my water. The bubbles rose to the surface and disappeared. Brooke was the first person to say it out loud. She leaned toward me, loose from wine and too pleased with herself. "Relax, Diana. It is only dinner. You can afford it." The table went quiet. I looked at her. "Afford what?" She gestured broadly at the platters, the bottles, the desserts that had just arrived. "This. We ordered the good stuff because you are treating." There it was. No one corrected her. My mother's eyes flashed toward Brooke, annoyed not because Brooke had lied, but because she had said the truth too soon. My father cleared his throat. Aunt Linda looked down at her plate. I let the silence sit between us. Then I said, "That was decided without me." Brooke shrugged. "It is family. You have always helped." "I have," I said. My father leaned forward. "We are all together tonight. No one is trying to make this unpleasant. No one is trying to make this unpleasant." The sentence was so close to an admission that I almost smiled. Dessert arrived. There was a chocolate souffle for Brooke, creme brulee for Aunt Linda, coffee for the older relatives, and another small plate set in front of my father. The room became slow and heavy with sugar, wine, and expectation. My father waited until everyone had a spoon in hand. Then he folded his hands on the table. I had seen that gesture before. He used it before speeches at holidays. He used it before asking me for money. He used it when he wanted to make a decision sound like an inevitable fact. "Diana," he said. I looked at him. "You are paying tonight, right?" Nobody moved. My father smiled a little, but it did not reach his eyes. "You owe us that much." There are moments when a room changes shape around you. For years, I had imagined this exact kind of scene. A room full of relatives, faces turned toward me. The old pressure gathering around my chest. The expectation that I would say yes because saying no would be embarrassing, inconvenient, selfish, ungrateful. I had paid so many times to avoid that discomfort. I had mistaken relief for love. I looked at my father, then at my mother, then at Brooke. I did not raise my voice. "I do not owe you," I said. My father's smile tightened. "Do not do this here. You chose here." My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Diana, sweetheart, we are trying to bring the family back together." "No," I said. "You are trying to send me a bill." Brooke pushed back in her chair. "You always make everything about yourself." "That is interesting," I said, "because I came here for dinner with my parents and sister." "You invited 15 people, ordered food before I arrived, and decided I would pay for it without asking me." Aunt Linda said, "We did not know it would upset you." "You did," I said. "That is why nobody told me." My father's face darkened. "You have no idea what we have been dealing with." "I heard you in the hallway," I said. My mother went completely still. Brooke's mouth opened. I continued before anyone could build a new story. "I heard that the bank has been calling. I heard that you wanted me here because you thought I would not say no in front of everyone. and I heard Brooke say I could get you through spring. No one spoke. The room had gone so quiet that I could hear glasses clink at another table outside the door. My father looked down at his hands. For the first time that night, he did not look angry. He looked tired. Then Nathan appeared beside him with the leather check folder. He placed it directly in front of my father, not in the middle of the table, not near me. In front of the man who had booked the room, signed the agreement, and ordered the additional food. My father stared at it. My mother looked at the folder, then at me. Diana, she whispered. I picked up my water. I paid for mine, I said. My father opened the folder. I did not see the number, but I saw what it did to his face. His lips pressed together, his eyes moved once across the page, then he closed the folder again, too quickly. I have it, he said. His voice was louder than it needed to be. He took out a credit card and handed it to Nathan. We are celebrating, he said. Nathan accepted the card politely. I will be right back, sir. The minutes that followed felt longer than the entire drive to the restaurant. No one ate dessert, no one reached for coffee. Brooke stared at her phone without scrolling. My mother kept twisting her napkin in her hands. My father sat upright, trying to look offended rather than afraid. Nathan returned. He leaned down and spoke quietly. I am sorry, sir. The card did not go through. My father looked at him as if he had misheard. Run it again. Of course. Nathan left. My father did not look at me. He looked around the room, searching for some sign that people were still on his side. The second attempt failed as well. This time, David came with Nathan. He spoke in a low, professional voice. I could not hear every word, but I heard enough. I am afraid the authorization has been declined. My father pulled out another card, then another. The third one failed too. Nobody laughed, nobody even looked satisfied. Humiliation is not entertaining when it happens to someone you once loved. My father's hands shook as he gathered the cards. Then he looked at me. The performance was gone. The anger was gone. For a moment, he was simply my father, older than I remembered, frightened in a way I had never seen. Diana, he said. His voice broke on my name. Please, we are drowning. There it was. The truth, finally said, without decoration. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to help him. I wanted to stand, take out my card, erase the panic from his face, and turn the room back into something safe. Then he added, You would really let us sit here like this? And I understood. Even now, he was not asking for help. He was asking me to rescue him from the consequences of his own trap. I stood slowly. I am sorry you are struggling, I said. I mean that. I do not want you to lose your home. I do not want Mom to be afraid. I do not want Brooke to feel like her life is over. My mother began to cry quietly. But you did not invite me here to tell me the truth. You lied to me. You built an audience. You ordered a dinner you could not afford. You expected me to be too embarrassed to refuse. My father looked away. I will help you make a plan, I said. I will sit down with you and a financial counselor. I will help you call creditors. I will help you understand the numbers. But I will not pay for a trap, and I will not become your plan again. Brooke stood up. So you are just leaving us with this? No, I said. I am leaving you with the dinner you ordered. Aunt Linda inhaled sharply. I looked at her. You told me family does not keep score. You were right. So stop treating every dollar I ever earned as if it belongs to you. Then I turned to my mother. She looked smaller than she had at the beginning of the evening. You always said family takes care of family, I told her. Why was I the only person who had to prove it? She did not answer. I picked up my purse. David stepped slightly aside as I walked toward the door. He did not stop me. He knew I had paid my separate check. He knew who the signed host was. He handled the rest of the table with the calm discretion of someone whose job was to solve problems without becoming part of them. Near the hallway, Nathan caught up with me. Thank you, he said. I touched his shoulder lightly. You are doing a good job, I said again. Then I walked outside. The night air was warm. Cicadas hummed in the landscape trees beside the parking lot. I sat in my car with the window down and looked at the sticky note on my steering wheel. One dinner, then home. I started to cry before I even turned the key. Not because I regretted leaving, because I had spent years believing that if I found the perfect words, if I offered enough help, if I was patient enough and useful enough, my family would finally love me without asking for proof. That night, I stopped waiting for that version of them. I drove home in silence. When I got there, I left the family chat without reading the messages that had begun flooding my phone. My screen lit up with names I had not seen in years. My mother, Brooke, and Linda, cousins who had watched in silence and now had opinions about what I should have done. I did not read a single one. I pressed leave group. Then I made tea, sat on my couch, and listened to my refrigerator hum in the kitchen. The quiet did not feel empty. It felt expensive at first. Then it felt like mine. Megan contacted me a week later. She did not call. She sent a message. I am sorry, it said. I should have said something before dinner. I knew your parents were having money problems. I did not know they had planned to put it on you like that. I read it several times before answering. What happened with the bill? I asked. Megan replied that Uncle Greg had transferred money to Dad. Aunt Linda covered part of it. The cousins had split the rest. There had been arguments in the parking lot. Brooke cried. My father did not speak much, but the bill was paid before the restaurant closed. No one was abandoned. No one was left without food or shelter because I refused. They simply had to pay for a dinner they had ordered for themselves. 3 weeks later, Brooke texted me. She did not apologize. She asked whether I could send first and last month's rent for a new apartment. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I sent her the number for a non-profit credit counseling service and a short note. I hope you find a place that works for you. She never replied. Over the following months, I learned pieces of what had happened. My father's contracting business had failed more than a year before the dinner. 2 commercial jobs had gone wrong. Payments were delayed. Materials cost more than expected. He used credit cards to cover payroll, then used other cards to cover the first cards. My mother had opened a home equity line to keep the house. They had been making minimum payments for months. The cafe had lasted less than a year. Brooke had taken a job answering phones at a dental office. My parents eventually sold the house and moved into a smaller rental south of town. I did not celebrate any of it. Pain is not justice just because it happens to someone who hurt you. 6 weeks after the dinner, I called my father. He answered on the fourth ring. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, my offer still stands. I will meet with you and a financial counselor. I will help you make a plan. He was silent. I waited. Finally, he said, I do not need charity from my daughter. It is not charity, I told him. It is help. There is a difference. He hung up. I did not call back. I still hope he changes his mind someday. I still hope my mother learns to speak without hiding a request inside every sentence. I still hope Brooke builds a life that does not depend on somebody else paying the first bill. But hope is no longer a contract. I used to think setting a boundary meant closing a door forever. I thought it meant becoming cold, selfish, or unforgiving. Now I understand that a boundary is simply the line between what belongs to you and what someone else is trying to hand you. Their debt was not mine. Their fear was not mine. Their embarrassment was not mine. Their dinner was not mine. That night, I paid for 1 glass of sparkling water. It was the smallest check I had ever signed, and it was the first one that truly set me free.
Got a mouth full of jokes and a pocket full of wins, but I clock how you move when the silence begins. If you're real, then be real when the room don't clap. I can smell a costume through a velvet trap. Look on chase, I replace the chase with momentum. Heart got a lock and I change the pin on a whim too. But you got that walk away power. Make a king feel a draft in his own high tower.
That mean me playing no smoke, no theater. Touch my mind first, that's the real feature. Two big egos, one lane, no brakes. If it crash, let it crash from the choices we made. Don't flirt, weak bargain, heat with a fine print. Kiss like a dare, leave a mark, no fingerprint. If it's love, it moves loud, no maybe in the air. Step in, hold steady or don't come near.
Say it with your chest, not your chest. Hey, straight like that. Call me trouble if you like, just spell it right.
And if you want peace, don't start no fight.